1.
Buenos noches, amigos, and welcome to another episode of Not Another Sox Podcast. I am Jack Webster here with Matt Galveo and Matt LeBeau. Gentlemen, we're locked out. How you doing?
We are back, man. We're back. It's been a week, a little over a week since we've been back here, and it's been good. Like we were talking about before we recorded last time, literally right after the day after we finished recording, we had all these signings around the MLB. We had a trade too that we're gonna get into, and it was just it's been really crazy. The last week, what has gone down throughout the league.
Yeah, we are officially in a lockdown. So I don't know. Is this a lawful podcast? Is this lawful recording of a podcast? I don't know if we're allowed to do this.
Well, we're not using the likeness of any players.
Right. There's no dissemination.
Are we disseminating anything?
No dissemination. We might get sued if we drop this. We should have our
obviously
faces
first time there's been a lockout, strike, or anything in baseball in over 20 years, basically our entire lifetime since 1994. Yeah. That was kind of when most of us were born, or even around that time frame. So we have never experienced a time where we have never not had MLB baseball in our lives.
Yeah, it feels weird, just like with Twitter notifications is like the one thing that you miss. It's like you're waiting for, a shoe to drop. It's December. It's getting a little chilly. You're waiting for that first snowstorm. You're waiting for that first Jeff Passan bomb about the $300 million contract, and your phone's just dry. It sucks, but yeah, hopefully there's a resolution. We'll see how the winter goes. Other than that, I mean, the Red Sox were busy right before it. That's for sure.
Every team seemed busy right before.
Yeah.
Literally, it was kind of like getting your grades in at 11:59 on Canvas right before the assignments due. Every team was kind of in that same boat. And, you still missed a few assignments at the end of the day, but you can make them up later, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
Please no college jokes. I did not attend college, so please no college jokes. Thank you. Do not appropriate my culture. Thank you.
You can always be a Phoenix.
That's true.
University of Phoenix grad Matt LeBeau.
They had a Super Bowl. Do not hate University of Phoenix Stadium.
Yes, that's right.
They had a Super Bowl?
Well, yeah, that was the name of the arena at the time. I think it's still the name of the arena in Arizona.
Yeah,
where the Cardinals play. Yeah.
That is hilarious. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, University of Phoenix Stadium, and the Patriots played in the Super Bowl there. They lost to the Giants, 2007.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that.
No, that didn't happen.
Fake news.
Oh man, but I really do hope this lockout situation, kind of. Obviously, ends at some point here, but especially before spring training, because it does suck. Anytime a sport's locked out, we've had lockouts, in the NHL in our lifetime. The NFL's had one, and it really just sucks for the fans. I mean, obviously like us and everybody else who's, a baseball fan and a fan of any sport that's in a lockout. It sucks. I mean, they're really the ones that lose out really the most, I feel like, in this situation.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a weird feeling right now to be locked out without having to actually miss any real games, because it kind of feels like you're still in that limbo of, are we actually going to miss any baseball? Are we not? What are even the major issues that they're going to have to overcome in order for, spring training and the regular season to start on time? I know, obviously, a salary cap and a salary floor is a big thing. The draft's a big thing. And there's a whole lot of other international signing issues and drafts and lotteries that, might come into play here. So Out of everything that you kind of see on both sides, it would almost feel a little ridiculous if they didn't reach an agreement, but the crazier things have happened.
Yeah, no, I agree. And in terms of, like you said, the feeling of a lockout, I don't really know if you wake up every day and you feel like, oh, baseball's in a lockout. It just kind of feels like the off season, but like a little more depressing. At the end of the day, though, I mean, this is the big market teams. I don't want to say they're going to benefit from it, but they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to pivot at the end of the day when it's over and sign whoever they want, trade for whoever they want, because they have bags of money to play with. And if it's guys at the end of this just looking for like 1-year deals, I mean, the Red Sox will be able to clean up whatever they want. Story, Correa, whoever. So,
Right.
you know, I don't want to say the Red Sox are benefiting from it, but I don't think it's really hurting them all too much.
No, I mean, like you said, the Red Sox bottom line is not going to be hurt at the end of the day here. The Yankees aren't. And honestly, it's going to kind of be weird if there is a salary floor, because the way it's going to work is, the higher market teams are going to have to pay the lower market teams literally money so that they can sign players. And I mean, that's probably not going to be this first year here. They're going to have to, kind of roll it out gradually. But even, if the Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers are having to make the Rays and Pirates actually spend money, it's probably better for the sport at the end of the day.
Right.
It's not coming out of the fans' pocket directly. So hopefully, things kind of progress in that regard, and, there's some type of agreement over the course of the next few weeks.
No, exactly. And like Jack, to your point, like I get the salary floor thing. I completely get that, because obviously the whole point is to just make the league, just give everybody kind of a fair shake, so that, obviously it's not always those big market teams that are, signing guys to huge contracts and, getting all the top free agents and all that. It kind of spreads the wealth, around the league, and, makes for those lower market teams, able to, remain competitive with those bigger markets like the Bostons and the New Yorks and, all those other teams. So I definitely do get that.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys a question about the salary floor, though. Honestly, if you're following the Astros model, which is tank as much as you can, tank hard, get those draft picks, develop those draft picks, wouldn't you just say, okay, I'm just going to pay fucking bad players? Like, hey, um, you know, barely above replacement level player, here's $16 million and you just hit the lottery, because we still want to lose and we still want to get those draft picks. We have to just meet the salary floor. So here's a guy that's just going to get paid a lot more than he's worth. Do you think that would happen? Or, I mean, do you think the teams would actually go out and spend on guys that would help them win?
So I think you kind of have to balance that out a little bit with some type of almost like what the NBA does with a lottery style draft, where you can't be like the Orioles or the Diamondbacks, where you're essentially intentionally losing games. You're not putting your best team out there. So even if you are 116 loss team in the regular season, you can't guarantee, you're going to get an Adley Rutschman or a Henry Davis or one of those type of draft picks. Like, you could still get the 5th all-around draft pick, or you could still, miss out on a special talent. You can't just purposely tank. And I think, you see even a little less of it than you might have in years past. You used to see it a whole lot more because of that whole Astros, Cubs kind of model of literally tearing it all down. I don't feel like you don't need to tear it all down at the end of the day. Now you can kind of be average for a little bit and then, rebuild the farm system at the same time. You kind of saw it with the Red Sox even.
Real quick. Adley Rutschman, I'm glad you brought him up, who the Yankee fans would not trade for, by the way, just real quick. Just want to throw that in there. According to a recent Twitter poll, 57 or over % of Yankee fans said they would not make a trade for Adley Rutschman.
You mean they wouldn't trade Clint Frazier and Miguel Andujar for him?
Fortunately, they can't anymore, at least with Frazier. So,
I don't understand the type of mental gymnastics that you have to take where you would think the Orioles would trade him in the first place. Like,
right.
Because in order to trade a prospect like that, you're getting an Aaron Judge, you're getting Gleyber Torres if he actually ended up panning out. You're getting one of those guys. You're not trading a top prospect for another top prospect. It's not like the Orioles are going, oh, we're going to trade the number one prospect in baseball for Jason Dominguez,
Right.
a top 25 guy that, is probably going to be a major leaguer, but not be quite a franchise player like, a 1-1 type of guy can be.
Yeah, you said it best. It's mental gymnastics with those people. I don't understand the thought process. You just can't make sense of it.
It's real. It really is honestly just baffling. Like some of the takes that they have, and this one's a pretty bad one. It's. I mean, I feel like it's every episode like we have. There's just something that Yankees fans say or do on Twitter, and
There's so much
just
content.
they can't like they try to one up themselves every week, it seems.
There's endless amount of content out there. If you're a Red Sox fan or if you're a fan of any team, and you follow Yankee fans on Twitter, it really is amazing. Never gets old. Never gets old.
No, and I mean it's unbelievable that that it wasn't a 99.9% yes in that poll, that they would rather have Gary Sanchez and Kyle Higashioka, or however you pronounce his name, as your 1-2 over probably the best catcher in baseball right now that's not in the majors. And even if he was in the majors, he would probably be a top 5 guy right now. I can't think of, how many guys would actually be better than him if the Orioles just brought him up tomorrow.
Truly one of the most valuable, like soup to nuts, one of the most valuable players in all of baseball right now. And Yankee fans are like, man, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I mean, It's just the level of delusion is reached a point of hilarity, but also it's like, you're right. It is mental gymnastics. It's circular thinking. It makes no sense.
Maybe the lockouts get into them.
Yeah.
And I mean, meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, the actual Yankees did literally nothing before the lockout. There's still some possibility that they might do something after. There's still some guys out there, but I legitimately don't think they signed one dude, did they?
No, not that I saw. I was kind of looking through earlier today, just all the signings that have happened, and yeah, the Yankees really haven't been on there at all.
Joely Rodriguez. That's
how could we forget?
Yeah. Yankee great Joely Rodriguez. Yep.
No, it is funny how kind of the Red Sox, Dodgers, and Yankees were really not the big spenders, and even the Red Sox ended up doing, some moves here, but it's not like they've done anything crazy so far.
Right. I feel like the Red Sox kind of, you're going to look at this offseason when April comes around, you're going to see that the Red Sox did it in reverse. I think they put like the finishing touches on prior to the lockout, and I think that they're going to make the bigger moves after the lockout. I don't see them. Heimblum said it on Zoom. He said that it creates a hole in right field, the Renfroe trade, which we will get to, and we'll dissect every piece of that. But he said that creates a hole. So if he's saying that and he has money to spend, he's going to fill that hole with someone, whether it's Suzuki or whoever. That hole's going to get filled. It's just going to happen. You can't leave that offensive. I mean, you can't lose 30 home runs and 97 RBIs, whatever, in the outfield and not replace it, or replace it with Jackie Bradley fucking Jr., who don't get me wrong, I love, but I mean he had a 497 OPS last year, so I mean, there's going to be someone.
Let's get into that now. We're on the topic. Let's get into that trade before some of the other signings.
Yeah,
because I think it really caught everybody by shock. This happened, 11 o'clock. An hour before the lockout happened here. Obviously, I don't think a single soul expected us to trade Hunter Renfroe, and I don't think a single soul expected us to get Jackie Bradley Jr. back. And I mean, you do get two pretty nice bats back in the trade as well, but it was kind of, not what you might expect from a team that made the playoffs last year and looking to make it again this year again in the future.
Yeah, it was just pretty baffling, honestly, and it came right at that that final hour before everything was locked out, where you get that notification that JBJ's coming to the Sox, and the Sox ship out Hunter Renfroe, which obviously, like you mentioned, LeBeau, 30 home runs, over 90 RBIs. That's a lot to lose on a team that went to the CS this past season, and they're looking to obviously make a World Series run next year. To lose a guy like Renfroe, that's pretty tough. And bringing back a guy like JBJ, who's obviously great defensively. He's great in the outfield there. Bat, not so much. As we saw this past year, and really throughout his career, in with his Red Sox tenure. It's weird, but I think, like you mentioned as well, I mean, they're gonna have to fill that at some point. Hopefully, after the lockout, they can sign somebody and fill that hole there that they're gonna have, because that's something that they're gonna have to do if they do plan on contending for a World Series this season.
For sure. And I was looking at it, and I was kind of coming around to it, because they essentially bought prospects. That's what they did. They had excess money to spend, so they said, well, we could bolster the farm system a little bit and take a guy that's unbelievable in center field, probably the best in the league. Use him maybe in the postseason or down the stretch, and you have a guy, Hunter Renfroe, had maybe his best season he'll ever have, so you sold high on him, right? And then I was thinking, like, I'm a Chaim Bloom defender, so we're all pretty much in Chaim Bloom is good for the Red Sox camp,
Right.
And one of the things that, if you're on Twitter or if you're defending Chaim Bloom on a regular basis, one of the things that you always kind of brought up was, well, Chaim Bloom went and got Hunter Renfroe, and he hit 30 bombs and 90 plus RBIs. That was a huge selling point. If you're like, no, Chaim Bloom knows what he's doing, he got this guy. All right. He just traded him for a guy that had a 497 OPS. So, I mean, it's like, when you look at it in the whole picture, if he replaces Renfroe, I think that I'll be fine with it. But if he doesn't, I mean, now it's like you kind of maybe lose a little bit of faith in the journey a little bit. Trust the process, but I mean, it does like kind of just rub me a little bit the wrong way. It's like Renfroe was the guy that Bloom got, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's a great deal, great signing, great addition," and then he just traded him for JBJ. So it's just, yeah.
So
It
it's
kind of
almost like
almost felt like a season finale cliffhanger, where this, I don't want to say terrible thing happens at the end here, but you're left in suspense because more is going to happen afterwards. They're going to either sign, one of the free agent bats out there or make some move in a way. But now, you kind of are in this limbo where you're not going to know what's going to happen over the course of the next few months. Because let's say, this lockout does continue all the way until March, where it does affect even spring training. And if it affects spring training, it's going to affect the regular season in some way as well, whether they're able to play a full 162 or maybe they go into November or something like that, kind of like what you saw in Korea and Japan over the last 2 years with what they had to do with their whole COVID situation, because they actually took it seriously, which must be nice. So you kind of know there are more moves that are going to be made, or at least you hope, because you don't know right now. But it wasn't a move I don't feel like makes them better in the immediate run. It might make them better in the future run, but JBJ is not going to be, your everyday center fielder like he was from 2015 to 2020. He's going to kind of be more of a backup bat for, maybe a guy getting rest. He might see him play kind of more right field and center field as opposed to just being a primarily center fielder before. Maybe you move some other guys around because he probably is your best defensive center fielder. I mean, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 guys in the entire league that are better out in center field than him. But it just is a weird feeling to end your off season like that, but end baseball right now on that,
yeah,
with that taste in your mouth.
No, I agree.
It's really almost like, I mean, like you guys had said, it's kind of like a TBD on the trade. Like it's to be determined on, looking at this trade because, obviously if something happens, once a lockout's over and they fill that gap, then yeah, it's great. But if they don't do anything, then you're left with like, okay, well, what are we doing here? Like we just, gave up a guy in Renfroe for, JBJ. That doesn't really help us win, any more than having Renfroe here. So I mean, yeah, it's kind of TBD really on the trade, and how we can really grade it going forward is all gonna depend on what happens with Chaim Bloom and what he ends up doing post lockout with this roster.
Yeah. And trust me, I do believe in Bloom, and I do believe that he does have a plan, not only for the team as a whole this offseason, but specifically this move here, this specific puzzle piece, which is, a right fielder, and then you got prospects, and then you got also, which JBJ does kind of fill a hole of if you needed, like, all right, so if you needed Kike to play second base, which happened in the playoffs, where you needed Kike to play second base, you're not going to put Verdugo in center field, right? That Verdugo showed that he could play center, but he's not a center fielder, and he's much better off in a corner outfield spot, preferably left field. And right field at Fenway is not his thing really either, because he doesn't have the arm strength. So I think JBJ does fill a hole, but they got to get a bat. They got to get an everyday outfielder, and it can't just be Schwarber. You can't
Right.
sign Schwarber and expect him to play right field, the biggest right field in baseball, and that just be okay. And you don't want Verdugo there. So I think they need a legit outfielder that can hit, not just Schwarber. And
Right.
if that's their plan, if that was their plan, is real quick, just to sign Schwarber and that be your other outfielder and JB your fourth outfielder, I think that's fucking terrible. I do. I love Schwarber, but that's terrible.
Well, I think the other issue that might come with signing Schwarber now, if you don't make another move on top of that, it's still very much in play. Kyle Schwarber would make your team better right now. Right. There's no doubt about that. But we're a very left-handed heavy lineup at this point now, and you kind of almost need a big right-handed bat to complement JD Martinez and Xander Bogaerts, because you have, Rafael Devers in there as well, kind of even it out a little bit. But if you're going to use kind of JBJ in a platoon situation, it would almost be better if he was somehow right-handed. And I'm not sure if JBJ batting right-handed could hurt him much more at the plate right now than what his current stats are at. But it kind of does make that move a little bit more in question right now. And I mean, there's obviously some other guys out there that, might fill it in the outfield, might fill it in at second base right now that we can get into as well that, might be good fits. But that move changes what you're going to do in terms of other moves in the offseason now.
Exactly, yeah. And I know obviously we mentioned it already, but one of those guys that could potentially be signed is Suzuki, and he'd be obviously one of those guys that could come in and fill that everyday outfielder role. Jack, I know you watch a lot of international baseball, so I know you're probably very familiar with Suzuki. So he definitely would be somebody that could come in and really serve as that pop in the lineup, and obviously that hole in the outfield as well.
Yeah, so no, I'm obviously a big foreign baseball fan, not only Asian, but I've been trying to follow more of La Liga, or not La Liga, the Dominican League that's going on right now. I'm blanking on the name for some reason. But no, Suzuki is obviously might be the number one outfield bat that's out there right now. And I was looking a little bit more into him over the course of, the last week and a half now, because he was always a guy kind of on that radar, but he didn't necessarily see a fit because the Red Sox did have so many outfielders already, but now because you're missing Renfroe, it kind of almost fits in a little bit. So I actually didn't realize how young this guy was. He was in his age 26 season last year with the Hiroshima Toya Carp, which is in the MPB, but he hit 317 with a 433 on base and a 636 slugging percentage with 38 home runs last year. He's a very good outfielder, has won the Japanese equivalent of a Gold Glove before. And one thing I didn't realize until I was looking at his baseball reference page a little earlier today, he has played a little bit of short. He has played a little bit of third base in the past, even a little bit of first base. So you're gonna sign him as an outfielder, but he might be able to fill some gaps for you in some other areas where you might have not expected it in before. And again, he's only going to be in his age 27 season. So if you give him a multi-year deal, theoretically you're signing him for his prime, and hopefully you kind of get some more of that productivity. And I think, for a long time, it was kind of just Hideki Matsui as the only good Japanese bat, but I think Ohtani's kind of changed that narrative a little bit too.
Yeah, obviously Ichiro, but that's okay.
He shares the same birthday as me.
Yeah. No, but and touching on that, right? I think that there's been a lot of Japanese players that have came over, and a lot of them have been pitchers, and there's been a lot of great pitchers that have came over. Don't get me wrong, but the bats that have came over, I think, have hit on a higher success rate. The pitchers kind of have a tend to be boom or bust a little bit. There's a big adjustment, but no one that's had hype that can hit has came over here and failed. I mean, you just mentioned the big three that had the hype offensively: Matsui, Ohtani, and Ichiro. So this guy, apparently, I mean, numbers wise, he's just as good as those guys, if not better. I mean, I think his biggest comparison would be like a right-handed Hideki Matsui, numbers wise, at least. And Hideki had an unbelievable career here, in the United States. Right now, I think they need him, and I think they need him because if you look at the right side of the field, you have Bobby Dahlbeck, you have Christian Arroyo, you have Jackie Bradley Jr., and you have if you move back a little bit, you have Christian Vasquez. So those are four guys that honestly are to put it mildly, absolutely dreadful offensively. Christian Arroyo, I have some faith in him. Vasquez, I mean, he's always going to be the catcher, so I'm not, really factoring him in as a change. But you can't have those four guys in your lineup and expect to win anything more than 84 games. So they need him. They need something. They need an outfielder, in my opinion, big time.
And he'd be the perfect guy to complete that Renfroe and Jackie Bradley Jr. trade, like we mentioned. That TBD tag that it has right now. I mean, that's the perfect guy to go out and sign. And he'd be that big bat, that big pop, that right-handed bat that the Red Sox need, and he'd be perfect. He'd be a perfect suitor for this Red Sox lineup going into 2022.
Yeah,
and it would also be perfect for the Yankees not to sign another guy and for him to go to Boston.
Yeah. They're competing with the Yankees. They're competing with the Blue Jays, a couple of teams that, love guys from Japan, good markets for Asian players. So if I'm Suzuki and I'm choosing between those three markets, I'm looking at, a place where he can thrive financially, good endorsements. If you go to any of those three cities, going to be stiff competition, but no, I think it'll be, if the Red Sox want him bad enough, and I think they do, and I think they've done their due diligence enough, then I think he'll fit right in. Hopefully, he'll be playing behind Trevor Story at second base because I like Christian Arroyo, but I really do like Trevor Story. So,
yeah.
Well, one last thing about Suzuki, it was very interesting that the Red Sox were the only team that he followed on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not going to look too much into the players. He actually ended up following, like a lot of players on a lot of different teams, kind of, the big superstar names that you might expect. but the Red Sox were the only team that he ended up following. And recently, this wasn't, kind of he was following them in the past. This was a recent Twitter or Instagram follow for Suzuki. So I don't want to look into that too much, but I think it does kind of say a lot that there was at least a lot of traction there. And then who knows, maybe it could have happened those last few minutes and just didn't, because you didn't get the paperwork in a time. There could have been an actual agreement that, you kind of pick up and drop off on, which is also the case for, probably a lot of other guys out there too.
I think that you could see a lot of agreements or a lot of official deals like the hour after the lockout is over. I think there was a lot of handshake agreements. I think there's probably a lot of talk between agents and executives right now. There's nothing stopping from these guys texting each other and saying, hey, what can we do? Just because you can't ink someone doesn't mean you can't talk.
Right.
I mean, there's going to be...
You're technically not allowed to talk, but...
Right.
When has that
I don't
stopped
know
anybody?
who's actually regulating this other than players,
Right. So I can tell you, if you're an agent, right, and you're up against the clock and your livelihood depends on someone getting a $250 million contract, I'm breaking those rules, because guess what? The MLB can't regulate me. Now, they could regulate the executive, but I don't think anyone's actually keeping track of that. So, I think you'll see, like, after the fucking hour is done, being like, all right, this guy signs here, this guy signs here, this guy signs there.
Yeah.
And, it'll be interesting.
And you even see somebody like Justin Verlander, where it was not an official deal. And, he technically is still a free agent out there right now. So I think he might be really the only big name out there that's like that right now. But technically, let's say the climate changes, he might turn back on that. I don't see it actually happening, but theoretically, it is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna will it to happen. Bring Kate up
or
into Boston.
Maybe he's like an Aaron Boone. He's playing basketball. He breaks his leg, and that changes the course of MLB history. Or, For now, the Yankees trade for Alex Rodriguez, and it ultimately, changes the course of their franchise history.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow. That is wild.
So, Jack, I mean, I think really you're just breaking news right now that Suzuki is going to sign with the Sox. That's what I heard.
I think if it does happen, Jeff Passan needs to credit us.
Yeah. Credit NC Dino Stan on Twitter.
No, I'm going to at least give it to the podcast. We need more followers.
Okay. Right.
Listen, if Suzuki doesn't sign with the Red Sox, Jack, just so you know, I am tweeting your address, and there will be Red Sox fans outside your door ready to kill you. So
please release me from this hell.
Exactly.
But another name you were touching upon before we got back to Suzuki and everything, Trevor Story, another great bat that's still out there that might be a good fit for us, might be a good fit for a lot of other teams, but a little surprised he didn't sign there.
Yeah, there was him. I guess it was really him, and the other big name really was Carlos Correa. I really thought he was going to get a deal as well. Those really are the two guys that you look at. I feel like Correa is almost a little bit more surprising that he wasn't signed, because there was a big thing with him and the Tigers that he was going to sign this big deal with them. That didn't happen. Baez ends up signing there. But yeah, I mean, those two are definitely surprising. There's a lot of big names still out there as well. Kershaw's still out there. Obviously, Story, Correa. There's a lot of names that are still out there that haven't signed, but obviously relating to the Sox and their needs, Story and Correa are still available here. So it's interesting they didn't sign.
Yeah.
No, I mean, sorry. No, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Yes, I mean the Correa, it seems like he's definitely, I don't want to say like destined to be a Yankee, but I mean, I'm getting that vibe. And it just kind of feels like it. It feels like kind of like Garrett Cole all over again, where kind of Yankees are laying in the weeds. But yeah, I mean, I was surprised. I was surprised Correa didn't sign. I thought he was gonna go for sure.
I thought Correa was going to go before Baez, certainly. I actually kind of thought Baez might be one of those guys, kind of out there in limbo when the clock struck midnight at December 2nd, and, he didn't find a team to sign with. So it's going to be interesting to see where Correa signs. I think Boston's not out of it at this point. It'd be very surprising if they did, and I think it might take him out of some other moves if they did end up signing him. So it's probably not going to end up happening. It would have been nice if that was your first move and you can build around that, but there's still a lot of teams in on him. He could go back to the Astros if they make a better deal. I think the Mariners might be a sleeper team for him, and like I said, he makes any team better. So if a team wants, they could sign him.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I guess we can go kind of to a couple of the Red Sox signings that happened after we recorded the last episode here. I guess the big one really is there's Rich Hill. That signed that 1-year deal with the Sox. Obviously, he's been here before multiple
Back
times.
at it like a crack at it.
Yeah.
Can't get enough.
That tweet that you said that you tweeted, Jack, with the teacher coming into the classroom every day. Just like that's Rich Hill.
Hello.
That literally is. That's the perfect tweet for Rich Hill. Obviously, he's no stranger to the Red Sox.
Yeah, Rich Hill's back. The Patriots are back, so there's no coincidence here. Rich Hill came back to Boston so he could get kicked out of another Patriots game. So yeah, I think Rich Hill. I mean, I was surprised the Rays traded him at the trade deadline last year. They made a good move, don't get me wrong, because they got a power bat. But I was surprised that I think that's what they were lacking the most was a veteran starter. If the Rays had Rich Hill in the ALDS, I'm not sure it would have been the same outcome. I think he replaces Erod pretty well, if that's their replacement for this year, for 1 year. So
I saw somebody mention this. This was during the season in 2021, but it was during Rich Hill's last start or second to last start with the Rays, where he got taken out after 3 1/3, where he was actually doing well, or maybe 4+ innings, and he was pissed that he was coming out, like, because he was doing well, and somebody mentioned he knew that he was going to get, or Rich Hill was going to get traded right after that moment, because he didn't believe in the Rays way of, maximizing your win probability in every way possible, which, works for the Rays to a degree. They haven't won a World Series, but, that's
right.
a completely different other subject. But, I mean, he, here he is going to be a starter. Maybe he'll come out of the pen later on in the season if you really need him to, but he is one of those guys where, he's a starter. He's always wanted to be a starter. And, he was in independent ball as a reliever and, kind of made this great comeback as a starter in his late 30s or mid 30s and now late 30s. And so that's what he wants to do. I think the Rays were probably a bad fit for him. And that's kind of why you saw that trade there. But I think it is a very good signing for the Red Sox. Super low risk on a 1-year deal. He probably even took somewhat of a discount because he is a, Boston Milton native, and it's his 7th time signing with the Red Sox and 4th actual season now that he's going to be on the big league club. So
yeah,
literally, I mean, it's like the buy 3, get 1 free discount that you might get with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, it's a great piece to have, good veteran depth piece to have to this rotation. Chaim Bloom's done, that so far this season with Waka, Hill. And then also James Paxton, signing him to a 1-year deal as well. Obviously, he was out this past season with Tommy John surgery. So he'll probably be back at some point, maybe in the middle of next season. So really you're kind of getting him for, that late push, right before the postseason starts. And obviously another veteran guy who's, shown he can obviously pitch well in this league. And, hopefully after the surgery, he can come back, strong here and provide some innings here for the Sox late in the season.
Yeah. No, I mean, all of the deals, good deals. Paxton, I think I'm probably the most excited about because of the implication to the future. Those last 2 years are incredibly team friendly if the Red Sox pick up the option and you get a guy for such a low, AAV that can give you 185 innings and pitch very, very well. Is pitching in the division, especially in the American League, very well. So, yeah, excited about that one. Rich Hill, like I said, I think he's going to replace Erod, and that should be, I think the rotation. I really, if gun to my head, I would say that they're probably done with the rotation. Maybe,
Right.
maybe another little piece to, because think about it, they lost 3 pitchers, right? Martin Perez, Garrett Richards, and Erod, and they signed 3, but they kind of signed more like 2 because Paxton probably won't come back until August or September. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if they signed 1 more or traded for 1 more.
Right. Because that kind of goes in hand with obviously some of the big name pitchers that were out there that have already been signed, like a Scherzer going to the Mets for 3 years. Robbie Ray to the Mariners for 5 years. Stroman, was a big one that, we had talked about, the last couple of episodes. He ended up going to the Cubs for 3 years. So those 3 big names obviously are out of the book now. So if Bloom was to add to the rotation, probably going the trade route. Also, Kershaw's still out there. He's one of the bigger names, but more likely than not, I feel like Bloom probably goes the trade route if he is going to add to the rotation at all.
Yeah, no, I kind of like what you guys said. The rotation's pretty much set at this point. Paxton's going to bring you some stability down the road. He had Tommy John, I believe it was late April of 2021. So, you might even get him down the push for a few starts, maybe in August, even September. Maybe he comes out of the pen, even just kind of building him up, down the playoff stretch. You can never have too much pitching, especially at that time of year, especially when, rosters do expand. So those team options in the 2023 and 2024 season do make a big difference. I think, you kind of saw that 1-year deal when it first came out from Jeff Passan and Ken Rosenthal, and everybody's kind of like, why are you giving a guy that, is really not going to pitch this year $10 million? But it makes a lot more sense when you kind of factor in those team options, not even player options. So it gives them, more long-term flexibility of what they want to do. Even if it doesn't work out, it's $10 million. It's not going to really hurt too much. Who knows what's going to happen with, luxury taxes and everything with the new collective bargaining agreement. But it was a very low risk / no risk type of thing that gives you a little bit more depth. And even, when Hill and Paxton and Walker are in there, you still have Tanner Houck and, guys like Connor Siebold and Brian Bayo in the minors. I think really kind of the biggest thing these 3 signings told me is that Garrett Whitlock's going to be in the bullpen for 2021 or 2022 and beyond. Yeah. They see him as a reliever. If they were going to have him be a starter, they probably would have already said it. So he's going to be your either 8th inning guy, or who knows, he might end up even being your closer at one point in the 2022 season.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. So yeah, it's obviously going to be interesting to see what they do here post lockout, with the outfield situation and obviously pitching as well. Maybe adding some depth to the bullpen if they can go that route. So yeah, I know Jack, I don't know, you had wanted to do something fun here with the Hall of Fame voting as well. I don't know if you want to do that now or you want to push it off a little, maybe a little bit later, or.
Yeah, I don't really think there's too much really to touch upon, in the offseason. There's obviously bullpen arms out there. Probably not going to sign a closer. It's going to be a name you might not expect, so it's even almost just pointless to speculate on at this point. They're going to do something, but
Right.
There's so many names out there. There's so many trade options out there that who knows. So, yeah, no, I mean, a lot of new names on there, a lot of last year names on the Hall of Fame ballot. So, should be interesting to see who gets in and who falls off.
Oh, exactly. And I know you had, when the ballot had come out, I know you had tweeted out, your picks. I know most,
I changed a little bit.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That was my initial ballot. I've dug into it a little bit more at this point.
You get 8, right? Just confirm.
You get 10.
10. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Can I vote
some
for
people think it should be more. I think 10 is actually a good number.
All right. I'm ready to rock. I got my 10.
I got my 10 too. And you don't have to vote for all 10. You can leave it blank, like if you're a fucking idiot.
That's what it is. I looked at a ballot before and I saw 8, so he just he must have just voted for just 8. So
yeah, no, exactly. You can vote for 8. You can vote for 1. You can vote for nobody. And if you vote for nobody, just lose your goddamn ballot. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
And if you're a member, you cannot vote at all, and it doesn't get counted towards the percentage points.
Okay, so I have 7 here that I want in the Hall of Fame, and I don't think that it's and I'm not saying that the rest I don't, but I have 7 that I for sure want in the Hall of Fame. So Barry Bonds, of course, obviously, but you guys knew that. Jeff Kent, yeah. Manny Ramirez. Roger Clemens, that's 4. David Ortiz, that's 5. Alex Rodriguez is 7. I'm sorry, 6. I said 7, 6. That's Alex Rodriguez is 6. And honestly, I think that's it for now. I think that's all that deserves my vote. And I think that I don't care about steroids. It's incredibly hard to hit a baseball. Okay. I mean, Barry Bonds and Alex Rodriguez were both unbelievable athletes before steroids. That is a proven fact, and they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. They transcended the game, and Manny Ramirez is the greatest right-handed hitter I've ever watched, and it's not even close. He is just so smooth, so beautiful. He is my favorite athlete of all time. And yeah, that's my ballot. If you don't like it, die.
So my opinion on the whole steroid thing before I get into my ballot is if you did it before 04-05 when it was hard illegal to do it in baseball, that was Bud Selig's fault for essentially allowing it and benefiting from it. So I don't think you should be punished for the Hall of Fame for it. But if you failed the test post then and, got an 80 game plus suspension for it, I'm sorry, you're out. You're out. I mean, it's just too cloudy at that point. So, before 04, literally everybody, I don't want to say everybody was doing it, but so many guys were doing it. It was an even playing field. So a guy like, Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds do make it onto my list, but guys like Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez don't make it on my list here. So I do have my ballot here. And I'm just going to go in alphabetical order. And I will also say before I go on, I vote for some guys to stay on theoretically, not that I have an actual ballot, to kind of stay on the ballot and kind of have more recognition because, a guy like Edgar Martinez initially was not a Hall of Famer and ended up making it in because of, more perspective later on. So literally the first guy on my list, which probably might catch a lot of people by surprise, is Bobby Abreu. Nearly a 400 on-base percentage his entire career, 288 home runs, over 400 stolen bases, a couple gold gloves in there as well. So he's a guy that, probably won't make it in. I think he deserves a little bit more recognition than he might get at times. And then obviously that comes down to Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens last year on the ballot, where those are no-brainers for me. I can't believe they're not already in. Another guy that I think deserves to make it in, he may or may not make it, Todd Helton. I don't care about Coors Field. His numbers are there. Another guy, I can't believe this is even a debate, Andrew Jones. So many Gold Gloves, played for so many great teams on the Braves in the 90s, and had an illustrious career. I think he definitely deserves to make it on. Jeff Kent, I know Matt LeBeau mentioned him as well. Ranks up there with some of the best second basemen of all time. Won an MVP award with Barry Bonds on his team. There was 1 year in baseball where Barry Bonds was not the best player on his own team, and that is unbelievable. David Ortiz, I mean, he's probably not going to make it in the first round. He should make it in eventually, I think. Like I mentioned, A-Rod and Manny were not on my ballot. Scott Rowland, easy Hall of Famer for me. The defensive metrics and what we know about defense now, I think, shows how valuable he was, especially compared to a lot of comparative positions that he was at the time. Another guy that's probably not going to make it in but deserves more recognition, Jimmy Rollins, won that MVP, had the 2020-2020 season, 20 doubles, 20 triples, 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases. I can't see that ever happening again. And the last guy on my list, Billy Wagner, relievers deserve to make it in. He's as good as anybody else. So
yeah, that's a good list.
I did fill out a full 10 ballot just because I want some guys to stay on. There's probably only about 6, maybe 7 guys that I actually think are going to make it in or should make it in. But I believe in a big haul.
Yeah. Well, someday when you get a vote from the BBWAA, then you can tell everyone that you left Manny Ramirez off your ballot like a fucking bozo.
Yep. two failed tests. No,
I know. I understand. I get it. I don't like
the
it, but I
numbers
get
are there. I would love to vote him in, but I can't vote A-Rod in and not vote Manny in. Same with the guy
they're one and the same.
Sammy Sosa and a few other guys out there.
Yeah, they're one and the same. That was my reasoning for having A-Rod in, because I had to have Manny in, and I mean, Manny Ramirez is the reason I love baseball. I mean, I fell in love with the guy when I was in elementary school. So
it was hard not to too.
Oh yeah.
No, I love Manny. I mean, if he didn't fail those, literally, if Manny did not do anything after 2010 when he got, or 09-010 when he got traded, he would have been in the Hall of Fame. He had to do nothing, and he would have been in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
All right, Galveo, go.
Yeah. All right. I got Bonds, Clemens. I also have Jones as well. Jack, Ortiz, Ramirez. I have Schilling, Vizquel, and Jimmy Rollins.
Nice. I like Omar Vizquel.
Yeah.
I like the Omar Vizquel pick.
I would like it if it wasn't for the domestic abuse and him literally sexually abusing a mentally challenged minor league not player but employee. So for that reason, I'm out. I
didn't know about the minor league player thing.
That one I didn't know about, actually.
Yeah, no, that came out recently. Apparently, he was legitimately sexually harassing a mentally challenged minor league employee when he was a manager for some White Sox affiliate. So I can't in good conscience vote for him. But another name on there that is very interesting that we didn't even touch upon was Curt Schilling.
Yeah. And the guy was nails in the playoffs. I mean, especially with the Diamondbacks. Obviously that run with the Red Sox as well. I mean, he's unbelievable. I know he's got a lot of off-field stuff that.
Yeah, but that's not.
Yes, stat-wise, nobody's debating.
Right.
That's not a Hall of Fame, consideration. Curt Schilling, I feel like he deserves it. I just didn't vote for him because at the end of the day, I think I have such a bias towards offensive players. I don't know.
I think the thing that really made it easy for me is him saying that he wanted to be off the ballot. He's okay with not making it in. he knows he's not going to make it in at this point too, and I think that's why he said it over the
Right.
last year. You know, I'm not going to impose my political beliefs on anybody, but he has kind of gone to a little bit more extreme than you should about it, especially a lot of his comments about, journalism and the press, especially over the last few years now. You know, there's obviously a lot of conservatives and Republicans that are in the Hall of Fame that, you know, we don't even know about what their opinions about anything are. But I think the fact that he's so vocal about it, and, you know, a lot of times, even if you are leaning towards the right, I think he's said a lot of wrong things. I don't think it's a very good look for baseball for him to be in the Hall of Fame, unfortunately.
Right. I understand. I think when it comes to Schilling, I think that his biggest problem is he knows that journalists control who gets into the Hall of Fame, and I mean, I think that's a problem. I do think it's a problem. Yeah. I mean, people who write about the game decide who gets into the Hall of Fame. For me, it doesn't make any sense. So, there should be like a committee of people who played or coached that decide who gets into the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. That's probably the best way to do it. The BBWAA.
You see that with the veterans committees. There's been even a few guys that have already made it in this year, like Buck O'Neill, finally, and Gil Hodges, and a few other guys that were long overdue. Unfortunately, not Dick Allen. So he'll get his time in Cooperstown eventually, but I think right now, kind of in the political climate of everything, you don't want to give Curt Schilling the biggest stage to say whatever he wants, essentially uncensored. So maybe down the road, I think he is deserving for what he did in his career, but he has not done himself literally any favors.
No,
kind of like Pete Rose.
He hasn't. Right. And like you said, I think the biggest thing is him saying he was okay with not getting in. I think that's probably the nail in the coffin. But the biggest thing that, it is frustrating as a fan. It's not the politics Hall of Fame. It's the Baseball Hall of Fame. And that is really important when you're voting for people. It doesn't care who they are. It doesn't matter who they are. It's about how good you were as a baseball player. Character doesn't play a role in your voting. I know it's hard because we want to like people that we look up to that play well or do well, but it really is, who's the best baseball player. And I didn't even vote for Curt Schilling. I don't think he really is all like a unanimous, undoubted choice to be in the Hall of Fame. I just don't think it should factor into his Hall of Fame consideration. That's all.
Yeah, I actually disagree with you there because there's nothing saying that those factors should not be into consideration. And I think, that's on the Baseball Hall of Fame and their voting process. It should not just be, journalists voting. And I think that is a very terrible way to do it. And the journalists that they're picking, are just kind of BBWAA members for life. These guys might have stopped covering the game back in 2005 and still get a vote. I remember hearing a few years ago that somebody was like, "Oh, can somebody send me a stat packet of players I don't know who to vote for?" And somebody just replied to him, a Baseball Reference link, like, look it up yourself. Like, what are you doing? So the voting system is very much broken, and it's on the Baseball Hall of Fame to fix it, and they're just not going to do it. They're just not.
Yeah,
I agree.
For sure. Well, they should be announcing that at some point, though, the actual Hall of Fame inductees.
I think it's January when they announce it.
So that'll be interesting. We'll have to obviously touch on that once it comes out. But unless you guys had anything, I think that probably about wraps it up for this week. I don't know if you guys
have a few Twitter questions.
That's
we
right.
had two Twitter questions.
Yep. Just some DM.
So I'm going to start off with my buddy Kyle Sullivan here, who, by the way, followed our Twitter page before both of you. I was the first follower because I made the page.
Wow,
he followed it before both of you. So
cheers, Kyle.
Cheers, Kyle. His question was, should I take steroids to help my calves be the biggest in the universe? And the answer is yes. You will not make it into the Hall of Fame, unfortunately, but if you just want to be a big buff boy with big calves, the equivalent of Dan Uggla's forearms, then yes, you should do it.
I would say maybe even consider the implants route. I don't know how much that would be. I don't know if health insurance covers that at all. Probably not, but I would even consider that too. If you don't want to do steroids, maybe try to go that route too. That's what I would say.
I'm gonna say do the steroids. 100%. This is medical advice. And if you want to try and sue me, that's fine. We can work it out. However, this is medical advice. Do the steroids.
Yeah. He is the doctor of the podcast.
Just do steroids.
And our second question, we already touched upon this, but this comes from Sox fan 618438876. I guess Sox fan 1 through 618438875 were taken, so he had to settle on that username here. But yeah, story to the Sox. We kind of touched upon that before. But I think all of us in agreement, if that did end up happening, we'd be very happy.
Would not be upset about that for sure.
Not upset at all. I think he'd be a great fit. Second base. I think it allows Bogaerts to stay at short, even though I think Story's probably a better shortstop than Bogaerts. I think that to make Bogaerts as happy as possible, keep him at short. Maybe they'll switch off a little bit, but Story, great second baseman, hit a lot of bombs over the monster.
And like even Bogaerts mentioned, he wouldn't mind maybe moving to second base down the line here. So, easy transition as well on that end. So
I think Story is probably a better defender than Bogaerts, but I think we've kind of touched upon this before. You don't want to move your franchise shortstop unless if it's a guy for like Correa or maybe a Corey Seager or somebody like that. For somebody that, is not going to be a 7-8 year deal like Story's going to be at this point, you probably keep Story at second base. God forbid, Xander ends up on another team and then you could move Story to shortstop again. But I think, if Story is coming to the Red Sox, he would be playing second base. And I think, I mentioned this before, Trevor Story would play catcher if it means he could get out of the Rockies organization at this point.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So thank you guys for the questions and the follows as well. The number keeps growing, so that's good. Obviously, Twitter is very active. A lot of people always following, liking, retweeting. I know we had a guy that followed us, retweeted us, subscribed on Apple Podcasts because he said as soon as we mentioned Duncan in our last episode, he knew we were the guys.
Yeah, we were his people.
That's good.
That was a good comment. I mean, we got a lot of love and really, I mean, for being 8 episodes in by the time this drops, or this is our 8th episode, right? Or 7?
Yeah, 8. Yep. 8.
Yeah. We're only about 2 months in even.
I mean, for being where we are now, I just am very grateful for everyone that engages with us, whether it be on social media or on the podcast. Really just so much appreciated. And we'll definitely, our promise to you would be always keeping it funny for you. Red Sox content, that's what it's all about. 2022 is gonna be a great year, and we're looking forward to it for sure.
I think we should all do steroids, one cycle. I think that would be good.
And not only do I think steroids should be legal, I think they should be mandatory.
Yeah. This is medical advice if you're listening.
Yeah.
Do steroids.
This is something Anthony Fauci will not tell you, but we will.
Please sue me.
Yeah, please sue me. You have so much to take.
They're taking that ugly sweater from you, LeBeau.
No, they're not taking this off me, that's for sure.
They're gonna have to pry it off your dead body.
Yep. They'll have to pry it.
Oh man. Well, there it is, episode 8. Don't forget also to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts as well. That's huge. Leave a comment. Tell us how handsome we are.
Give me those 5 stars.
Tell a friend.
Tell a friend. Yeah, exactly.
If you can find out how to hack Apple and give us 6 stars, that's even better.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's it. Episode 8. We'll be back with you guys next week. And Do steroids. And, can't forget, fuck Bronxy.
Fuck Bronxy
Fuck Bronxy.
and drink some Mountain Dew. Peace.
Cold now.